session. I would be looking for a motion to seal the non-public session meeting minutes indefinitely per RSA 91A3, Roman numeral 2, section I, legal advice. So moved.
Second.
All right, roll call vote. Ellie?
Yes.
Glenn?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Lori?
Yes.
Okay, those will be sealed. And that brings us to our next agenda item. I am going to start off with the Pledge of Allegiance since we are just starting out. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Our first item in public session is a continued public hearing. This is continued from December 11th. This is for the consideration of dissolving the Solid Waste and Recycling Committee. Would you like to, did the committee end up meeting?
I was not there.
Okay.
So they did meet, but I was not there.
Committee member? You're still on the committee, right? You're just, you're just, yeah, you're just not.
We did meet on Thursday evening, and we voted to not disband, but want to continue. We would like to continue the committee. The vote was unanimous, but we discussed how to make that all happen without with the chair leaving, and we talked about how we do have public meetings posted outside of the recycling center collection, but that we would take away those meetings and we would post our meetings as the collection center meetings. And we do reports from the collection center and we would make those public, and those would be the meeting minutes, so that we would they would continue having meetings if they wanted to work, focusing on the collection point, focusing on educational material. If there needed to be an additional meeting outside of the recycling center, Elsa has volunteered to send out agendas and minutes and act as the chair moving forward.
Okay, great. Any further discussion from the board or any
the only other thing is that we want to make sure that we get the warrant article to update the ordinances. So we presented on August 7th the proposal for the ordinances, and we just want to make sure that goes to warrant article this year as we had proposed, drafted as proposed.
And it shouldn't be, it's not a zoning issue, so they'll have plenty of time for it to.
Yeah, so that's going to be a selectmen's article.
Yeah, so you have already proposed drafts?
We already proposed it, we sent it to you, we reviewed it, and then that was back August 7th.
Okay, all right, so then we should push those forward as a selectman warrant article. Well, yeah, and I guess we still need to, it is a public hearing, so
yep.
I think just want to make sure we offer any other opportunities for anyone else to talk.
But before we do that,
yeah.
I honestly don't remember what happened back in August, or I have trouble with last week.
It's okay.
And I don't have the paper in front of me. Do you recall enough of it to just give just a quick overview of what the article would be?
We were obsoleting 502, 503, 504, rewriting 501 to kind of go with a 6-member committee with a chair, and then putting roles and responsibilities around trash and recycling with purpose of reducing the cost to the town, and proposing everything that we would like to do would come to the select board for review and approval.
Okay, so it's kind of redefining the committee and its role.
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So what it is now was due to the landfill,
right? And
so we rewrote it this summer, and then we found out we had to go to warrant article to update an ordinance, so we rewrote that.
Okay, I'm fine with that.
Anyone else like to speak to this? It is a public hearing, or a continuation of a public hearing. Okay. So I guess we need to take a vote, or we're,
Well, we should
I think,
close the public hearing.
yeah.
And then affirm what we've decided.
okay. At this time, I'll close the public hearing. And I guess it seems like since we have some people that are willing to step up and they're gonna restructure things a little bit, it seemed like most of us weren't really comfortable with a full dissolution of it anyway. We were even talking about suspension, but it seems like folks are willing to kind of pick up the torch and go with it. So I think it could be beneficial to continue.
Yeah, picking up the torch under a revised scope, if you will.
I move that we go forward with the solid waste and recycling committee with the proposed revisions going to warrant in March. Proposed revisions to the structure going to warrant.
I'll second it.
Okay.
So at our next meeting, which isn't for a couple of weeks now, we should get that revised wording and
Correct.
hopefully in the form of a warrant article that we can review.
It was done.
Okay, all right.
It
We just need to resurrect it.
Remind ourselves of what it said.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that carries. All right, our next appointment on here for the police chief has a grant opportunity. Good, chief, how are you? I do, we do have the PO in front of us. I can give the rundown if you want. I mean, yeah, I know. I've written enough of these. Just find it. Of course, it's the last thing. So the chief has proposed to us, it looks like it's part of a Department of New Hampshire Highway Safety Grant. This is for radar units, in-car radar units. The vendor would be Custom Signals, so these is radar equipment that they use in the police cruisers. The grant is for 2 in-car radar units. There is, the total cost of those units is the cost that would be covered by the grant is $4,372.50. The match requirement is $1,457.50. So the total of this purchase order is $5,830. These are pretty standard grants from the Department of Highway Safety. They do these things, anything from radar units to mobile data terminals in the cruisers, and they also do them for enforcement grants, whether it be DWI patrols, highway safety, speeding, those types of things. But this is a pretty standard grant that comes down through the Department of Highway Safety.
So the reason for these new ones is what, chief?
The ones we have right now, they're kind of falling apart. We had to replace the rear antenna a couple times. We kept falling, it's useless at that point. I don't think we've replaced them, and don't hold me to this, but I would say we can all day long. And, last year we got the same grant for $8,200. We got an amendment this year to go up to $12,500, I believe it is. And with that being said, a lot of this is used for the DWI patrols. And I'm happy to say that from one of my officers, Kingston, received an award for having the most DWIs in the state of New Hampshire from October 2022 to 2023. So we want to keep this grant going. It's over time. It doesn't cost the taxpayers anything. So I think it's a good program.
And you mean
you
mean he had the most DWI arrests?
Oh, yes, thank you.
And it was nobody in this room.
Most, and he got an award with probably a dozen other people. It was pretty good.
Good. So I assume then, if it's not costing the taxpayers anything, that the match is coming out of
The
the detail fund?
Yes, so it's not costing the taxpayers anything.
So we'd be looking for a motion to accept the Department of Highway Safety grant numbered 24-097 It moves the original award amount from $8,200 to $12,572 and encompasses the totals that I just previously mentioned, and we need to authorize the chair to sign all documents associated with it. All right, any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Okay, the only thing I'm gonna need is the minutes of this meeting to attach with that. I'll
Yep.
send it all out.
I'll make sure I don't miss anything. Okay. All right, that brings us to public comment number 1. Oh, yes, he did. Yeah. Yeah. No, you can come up. Yeah.
Good evening. So I forgot that you didn't have a meeting next week or the week after, so I am here with the remaining balance for the fire station building fund. One request, so currently there's $121,521.43 in the account currently. I'm requesting that we retain $30,000 and we end up turning back $91,521.43. There's still a few things on the punch list. Obviously, with being the holidays, people aren't getting back to me as fast as I would like. Speaking with Paula, there's no need to encumber those funds because they're not in the year-to-year budget. So it wouldn't really be an issue to keep that $30,000. And then the $91,000 and change that you guys have, like I said, I'm pretty sure, speaking with Paula and NHMA, that needs to go towards the building, but it could be used for the interest payment or buying down the bond, so.
So where, yeah, until we make, if so, Paula, does it either go to the interest payment, the bond, or does it go into an account until we decide where that goes?
It's in the infrastructure fund, where the trustees, so it just stays there.
Okay, so it's part of that revolving fund that we
Yep.
have, so it can stay there in the meantime?
Yes.
And then we can make a determination of how we wanna,
To make a determination, this is my understanding of the trust funds, and this is what NHMA said, it would have to go to warrant article to say we want to change the use of this much money.
okay, all right,
Like what happened when the town voted to take some out to do the library.
correct.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So otherwise, it just, the savings account, basically.
And but it can only be used for,
Right now,
Fire station.
until we change the warrant. Like,
Okay.
we change the
All
use
right.
of it.
Okay.
But can you use that currently without a warrant article to make a
Yes.
bond payment?
Yes.
It's still towards the building?
Oh, okay, so we
Okay.
could do that
Yep,
anyways, without having to go back to the voters.
Yep.
As long as it was towards that building,
yes.
bond payment for the new fire
Yep.
station. Okay, that's good, thank you.
And Chief, do you have I mean, you rattled off a bunch of numbers. Did you, the 90 whatever, do you have that exact number?
I believe so, yeah, Paula sent it to me today, so it should be, maybe,
91,521.83.
yes.
43. 43 or? Yeah. So,
So are you looking for then a motion?
yeah, I would say a motion to retain 30,000 for planned expenses.
So return 121,491.43 to the.
To the infrastructure fund.
Yeah.
Second.
Oh, that's my motion, yes.
Okay.
And a second.
Any further discussion?
As disjointed as it was.
Yeah, we figured it out.
All right, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
And thank you for turning back 91,000.
Any additional public comment?
I would like to recognize Chief Pellerin and the Fire Station Building Committee for their efforts in the middle of a massive inflation surge, a lack of construction workers, a lack of materials, and a lack of about everything else, they still managed to come in under budget. And I think that really does deserve quite a bit of praise.
Good job, Chief. No, thank you for that. Strings attached. All right, any further public comment? All right, we'll close public comment number 1. We'll jump into committee liaison reports. Ally?
Well, I have the first item under old business on the elderly exemptions. I emailed last night to every one of you that I proposed. We were asked to look at exemptions for tax exemptions. And, microphone going here. And we were given a list of some area towns and what they do and what we do, and we are way, way lower than most. And it's been years since we had the last time to revamp it. So what I did, I had consulted and reviewed this with Glenn Koppelman as well. I took the lowest number from, excluding Kingston, from one of the, there were 7 towns. Took the lowest and highest out and then did an average. And I'm proposing the following, that we go for age 65 elderly exemption from 65,000 to 130,000. There was no one under 100,000, 110,000, so we were way off base. Age 75 plus from 85,000 to 185,000, and age 80 and over from 105 to 225,000. And that disabled exemption go from 70,000 to 110. Now there's an income limit and an asset limit, and I didn't really change as much because the other towns, again, I did the average of the 5. We are at single person exemption is $30,000. I propose we go to 40,000, and married exemption also was 30,000 here in Kingston, but I propose that we go to 50,000. The asset limitation is currently at 55,000 for either for elderly and or disabled, and single and or married, and then it go to 190,000. It does go to warrant. In the 40 plus years that I can think of, we've only gone up one other time to get to these numbers. So it's been at least 20 years, I believe.
Which is why we showed up so low when compared to the other towns that we looked at.
Yeah.
So is that your motion?
Yes.
And I guess, could I,
We could discuss.
let's discuss it. I have maybe one potential change.
Do you want to discuss it before we do the
Yeah, I
motion?
guess if you'd be open to an amendment to the
Oh,
motion. And
absolutely.
I think the only thing that I would like to amend is, I know all the rates seemed very low for the income limit, but I would like to take the model that Sandown took, where we would essentially double it for married. I think we're entering those generations that were not single income generations that are hitting the retirement pool, and I think it's more appropriate to double the income limit for those individuals. So I would rather it be the low end of 40,000, and instead of the high end of 50, I'd like that to double for married to 80,000.
I don't think that's unreasonable at all. I followed a formula, throwing out the highest and the lowest,
Yep.
and that's what I'm presenting to you. I rounded up to make it the next 1,000, make it even, but other than that, it's strictly up. I did so well in the last time. Anyway, I have no objection to it. I think it's the right thing to do as well.
Okay, so that's your motion
The motion would be
with the
With
amendment?
that amendment.
with that amendment, correct?
Okay.
And I'll second it.
Okay. Further discussion? I just want to say, I think this was very appropriate, and so this is obviously going to be put out to the voters on warrant article, but we were woefully behind, and we're always talking about how people that have committed their lives to this town and lived here, they're being, we need to give them some type of relief so that they don't feel as though they're being driven out of the community with the increases that they're seeing.
And given this year with the reassessment and the price of real estate today, we were way off, way off. And I think it's the right thing to do to give our older folks a break, because of the income limitations are still strict
Yeah.
anyways.
Okay.
They are.
All right, so with the motion on the table, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, so that carries, so we'll bring that to town warrant as well. So the ballot keeps getting longer.
Oh, we were doing liaison report.
Yeah, kind of got, so,
The only other, I mean, I met with Melissa last week. They had the Friends had their raffle and raised over $1,500 for the holiday raffle. People were very generous this year, so. And some of that money goes towards the grant, should she get it, we'll know in February, for the three-season room edition for $500,000.
Yep.
Exciting stuff.
The applications are being reviewed as we speak.
There you go.
all right, Glenn?
I have nothing.
Okay. The planning board, the last meeting we had, it was just, there was some items that went to the initial public hearing and then they got pulled back, revisited, reworked. The last batch of items that'll go out for zoning public hearing items on January 8th. Those have been published on the planning board website. So that'll be the last batch of articles. Thankfully, we know there's a lot of them, and a lot of people I got to get updated flood insurance, and if they live in a floodplain. And that's all I have. Lori?
I don't have anything. Nothing has happened in the last.
All right. So we will move into old business. So we already went over the elderly exemption guidelines. We jumped right into that. An update on options for 47 Newton Junction Road.
There's nothing really new. Nobody's gone to see the inside of the house to know if you want to save the house. You do have to do a 90-day notice. So when you make a decision that you actually want to go forward with something there besides cleaning it up,
Yeah.
we'd have to pursue that.
Okay.
Control burn.
And if you're gonna,
Yeah, I guess, so Chief, would you mind maybe just scheduling a time to go out with Mr. Dorman and then just put it out to see if one of the select board members is available to go with you guys, just to take a look at it in general? And then we can kind of look at it for options of whether anything's worth saving or whether it's a good opportunity for a controlled burn before the town. But we have to clean it up no matter, we have to do something with it. We either have to clean it up or we need to demolish it or take care of it somehow. So if you don't mind reaching out to Mr. Dorman. Apparently it was boarded up, so you may need to bring some pry bars and a screw gun. Or Phil could bring down a front end loader. Okay, so update on the solar on the landfill option agreement. So I know we had some discussions offline, in non-public, but I think we can give it, do you want to give it kind of an update of where we're going publicly?
Right. Trying to think how to phrase this. Folks probably remember that the select board followed the recommendation of the solar committee to enter into an option agreement with Revision Energy for a potential solar development at the landfill site. And the option agreement merely gives Revision exclusivity over the next 4 years, according to the option agreement, to do their due diligence and investigation to see if, in fact, what we plan to build there for a solar facility can be built there. It also gives them the ability to start working with the Public Utilities Commission to get the interconnection sort of in queue and to get us in line for that. There was a question about whether or not not the development of the landfill site for the solar, but the option agreement itself, whether it needed to go to the voters. It's had some review and a second review, and apparently there is a particular RSA that we as a town have not yet implemented, and it would give the select board the ability to encumber town property for up to 5 years. And without that in place, we are really not in a position to sign the option agreement for more than a 1-year period of time. So we discussed going ahead, signing the option agreement with the understanding that it's going to be for 1 year, at the start anyway, and that the select board would put in the warrant article for March to give us the authority to encumber municipal land for up to 5 years. And if that passed, we could then modify the option agreement, put the additional 3 years onto it, and move forward with it. If for some reason that article did not pass, we'd have to do a bit of discussion with revision and see how we're going to move forward. But there's no money attached to it. It's merely an additional amount of authority granted to this board, and it only applies to municipal land and buildings. So,
Correct. So, yeah, I think if the board's consensus, we'll move forward with that article, but we'll continue pursuing the option agreement. It'll just be limited to 1 year of scope. Initially, until it goes before the voters. If they adopt the provisions of that RSA, then we could enter into because it only makes sense probably financially for revision to enter in it if they have the option agreement for the necessary amount of time, since they have to invest money in order to even pursue the opportunities.
And it's serious money, it's not like $5,000.
Yeah,
more
it's
like
hundreds of thousands.
hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Okay. Let's see, so under new business, we have the revised welfare guidelines to approve.
So I met with Marissa this morning, and I think that Susan printed it out for everybody. Did you-
Yeah, it's in here.
That was the biggest question that I had, because the language that she had was very confusing. So this is what we came up with to try to clarify the suspension periods for 7-day, 14, and then an indefinite until you're coming with compliance. So clearly it makes sense to Marissa and I, since we worked it, but does it make sense to, if you're just reading it for the first time?
It makes sense to me because I had
You have knowledge
conversations
of it.
with the
Yeah.
NHMA attorneys, because it was
Yeah,
fairly confusing. I'm like, how can it be they would qualify just the slate is wiped clean, but they said, nope, this is the standard that you are held to.
right. So I'll just read it. So what we're talking about is in the welfare guidelines that Marissa is redoing, it says suspension period. The suspension period for failure to comply with the guidelines or the notice of decision shall last either 7 days, 14 days, or until the client is back in compliance. A 7-day suspension is the first instance of noncompliance, so you would be suspended of benefits for 7 days. 14-day suspension. The suspension period will be 14 days if a client has a subsequent instance of noncompliance within 6 months of the completed application date. If a client has an unresolved suspension within 6 months of the completed application date, no further aid shall be distributed until the client is back in compliance. Aid will continue to be suspended until the applicant recipient complies. So
Yeah, so if
good.
that was the last clarifying
that
point.
was the
so-
last clarifying
Okay,
part.
so now we're looking to adopt everything as revised now with this last change. Okay.
Yeah. Most of it was coming out of the RSA, so she was just, and we had a lot of discussions about different things and how do you actually enforce some of it.
No, she did some great work. I saw she
did a
really
great
reached out to
job.
the other towns that are very heavily involved in
Yeah.
this and got some guidance from
Yeah,
them.
so we're just kind of tweaking the document itself, but that was the content, that was the last of the content questions.
Okay.
Make a motion.
Yep.
Yeah, so I make a motion to approve the welfare guidelines as reviewed and written.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, this is the part of the meeting when I start losing my agenda.
So the next one is the website policy.
Okay.
All right, so that's me as well. So, Tammy had requested that we put something in writing to clarify who can task Caitlin on putting stuff onto the website. So essentially what we did was when we handed it out, everybody, all the department heads and chairs and whatnot got to take a look at it. So essentially what we did was come up with a table that outlines who can task Caitlin with putting stuff on the website. So some of the questions, and I'm gonna ask the question, and then I'll give the answer. So can a board or a committee chair authorize a different board member to approve content? Yes, if the person who we wrote down, because we were just guessing on who it would be, so if there's somebody other than that, but we don't want names. So if the person doesn't have a title, because it's harder to, you know, you're constantly going in and changing, and we don't want to change, we don't want names, so it's only by title for the approval authority. So yes, they can. How do we handle individual admins who have the permission to add change or content on their example? Robin posts her own agendas and minutes and updated the ordinances. So in 6.1, it says, in the absence of a designated POC for a department, board, or committee, so DPW also has someone who updates it. So if they don't have a designated person, then it would be Caitlin or Susan. So that was already kind of answered in there. And the library shouldn't be included, so we crossed them out. So I think that was the only feedback, Susan, that you received, or the only questions?
Right, those were the only two, yeah.
So having answered those, if whoever asked the question regarding a different board member to approve content, if you can, I don't know who asked that question.
That was from the museum.
Museum committee,
Yeah.
because they asked me first, and I suggested forwarding that to Susan to get to you, Laurie.
So we have on, for the museum, it's a historical museum committee chair. If they want to designate somebody else, they have to come up with, it can't be a name.
But I think it needs to be a committee member.
It does need to be a committee member.
Yes.
Has to be a member of the, and right, it has to be a member of that committee.
Well, I think that what they were asking me when they asked the question was, could the vice chair do it in place of the chair?
Sure, of course.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's, as long as they're a member.
And on some of these, you actually have it listed that way, like Heritage Commission, chair or vice chair.
And that was just an oversight.
Okay,
Yeah.
so if we
So
could,
if that's
Yeah,
what
just
the,
a
yeah.
chair
if
or
it-
vice chair for
vice
that, then
Yeah.
that, I believe that satisfies
Okay,
their
all
request.
right, we're good. All right, so I'm gonna make a motion that this is accepted with the changes that we discussed, that we're adding vice chair for the museum committee. One of the other questions was already answered in 6.1, and that we remove the library from the table. So, other than that, review and approve, that's my motion.
Okay, so we have a motion.
Second?
All right, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right. Under board business, there's just,
Do you want to add Phil?
oh yeah, Phil, do you want to come up for the collection permit item?
Evening. I believe everybody's seen the notice of incomplete application from the DES. Susan forwarded it to everybody. So, had a lengthy discussion with the DES permitting chief on this matter. Apparently on their end, they had a lengthy discussion about whether we were even required to put this permit in, but clearly bureaucracy has won the day. So to have two dumpsters that are controlled by our contractor for waste hauling requires us to not only put this permit in, but put a bunch of other stuff in as well. So in between dodging wires and trees today, we got everything put together. It's going to be hand delivered to Concord tomorrow. In speaking with them, I explained that we're just starting this facility. We have decent momentum going, and it would be very disruptive to stop it at this point. And though they pointed out they were not on the Enforcement Bureau, they said the enforcement action would be apply for a permit, which we are currently doing. So I bring this before the board because I would like to continue with the collection center as we have been. And yeah, that's kind of the primary thing here.
Okay.
Why wouldn't we continue?
Great
Well,
question.
technically, we don't have a permit, but I just,
Other than the permit that will be submitted tomorrow, why wouldn't we continue anyway? No reason, I'm gathering.
I'm usually a full speed ahead kind of guy, but I just figured I'd run that by the board and make sure that you were okay with it.
And we're still gonna have collection on the 23rd, 30th, and January 6th.
Yes,
Because I'm already telling people that, so.
yes.
Is that? Oh, Christmas, I forgot about that. About the admin.
Yeah, I mean, all of these things are very minor, like the scale of the map. The map that they requested is basically half of Rockingham County, and you can identify nothing on there, but I did not use the appropriate scale for that, so they had to deny it for that. And our proposed construction date, and I explained in detail in my introduction letter that it was 2 dumpsters that our contractor was dropping off. There was no construction, and that didn't work for them, so.
So is there any, other than things not being to scale or whatever, once you submit this tomorrow, is there any reason to think that it would not be approved?
So I have not only addressed the issues that they raised, but I went through with a fine-tooth comb on the regulations, and I have added an additional 3 items to my application packet. Even though they're technically supposed to be on hand at the facility, we are completing them in advance of our approval. So I feel on this 3rd try, because the first time I thought they had gone through it, but they didn't. They went through a little more. So on this 3rd try, I feel that we have not really left them any option but to approve it. But
So if we do everything that we're supposed to do, they really don't have a reason to deny it. Is that right?
I would question their reasoning on deny it in the first place, but yes.
Be that as it may.
Yes, we have.
So it's not like they have the discretion to say, oh, well, in your region, we have enough of these already, therefore we're not going to do another one. Just hypothetically,
So this is a black hole of regulations and rules that some apply to certain things, and they're very open to interpretation. And again, this is one of the things I pointed out to the permitting head of DES on this matter. It is extremely confusing. So I would love to sit here and tell you that I thought of everything, but they're professionals at stopping things, so I never underestimate their ability to stand in the way. That being said, if this is not approved, there is a review process, and if you don't think I'm going to be on MUR asking why the people in charge of saving the environment are telling us why we can't recycle, I will be doing that. So
would you let us know before you do that, please?
absolutely.
Thank you.
I felt foolish.
Oh my God, yeah, right.
So there's a neighboring community that has in front of their, I won't even say the building, a town building, they have a cardboard recycling dumpster. And I texted them to see if they had gotten approval for that, because technically, as this permit is written, an unattended, just dumpster with a little slit in it to put cardboard in technically needs a permit by notification of select recyclables. It's pretty ridiculous, but we are following the process and we will get it squared away.
All right.
Is there a fee attached for the permit?
There is no fee.
Interesting.
So do I need to sign anything or on this one? Because I didn't see it
You'd
in
rather
the,
not, huh?
I don't know, I didn't see it in the packet if they updated.
No, you don't need to sign anything. I signed as the original one because, again, with ambiguity in there, as the operator, I felt that was, and they do require solid waste operator trained personnel, so I felt that it was appropriate for me to sign on that.
I would like us to go down in support of, down on the record, in support of the DPW director's initiative to get the permit for the recycling facility in Kingston.
It goes without saying.
And that, given that it's underway and should move through, that there's no reason to put a halt to our current facility.
That a motion, or you just want a consensus?
Well, I don't know.
What's that?
Take it as a motion if you wish.
Try to stop recycling.
That'd be a tough one for them to answer, I
We'll
think.
take it as a motion, I'll second it. All those in favor? Aye.
Thank you
Continue
very
on.
much.
All right. So we have the review of proposed warrant articles. We just have the updated copies in our packets. So now we're gonna put in we're gonna add the amounts on what's currently shown as Article 34, about the numbers that we came up with for the
34
elderly
and
exemptions.
35 as well.
Yep, and 35 for the disabled property tax.
I added a new one for solar, because that's come to our attention too. They've changed the way that they assess the solar systems. It used to be a flat 5,000, now it's per panel, starting this year.
Okay,
So where it used to be 5,000, it might be 18,000, it just depends. So our $5,000 exemption that was supposed to clear that is not gonna work.
okay,
And I did look at other towns, they pretty much all do 100%.
okay.
But you don't have to, you can do a percentage, you can do a flat amount, but I think a flat amount would be a problem because the assessments are all
System
over.
size, yeah, it could be vastly different.
So we're saying we're gonna have arbitrary solar discounts on the tax cards?
You can choose to do 100% of the assessed value of the system.
Who's we, the town assessor or the select board?
It would be on the books as an exemption that they would have to apply for when they put on their system, so that they can not have to pay extra taxes for having a solar system, because otherwise they would. It gets taxed as a feature.
Yeah, the reason for the $5,000 exemption in the first place was that for, at least in the past, any solar installation was assessed at a $5,000 value.
Yeah.
And the exemption was to offset that one-to-one, so that for those who were putting solar on, they wouldn't be paying taxes on it, essentially. That was the reason for it. That is the reason for it, and that's why.
It was intended to 100% exempt it from the increase, that they wouldn't be.
And so we're continuing that going forward for 100%?
Well, 100% to the value of the system, because they're no longer a flat, they're no longer going to assess them at a flat rate for every system. It's going to be evaluated per panel.
Right. It was 100% when they were all assessed at 5,000. The assessment now is being done on a per panel basis, which means that if you have a larger system, the value of that's going to be larger. And but the intent of these solar exemptions is to essentially have it a wash, so that a property owner is not paying taxes on the value of a solar system.
I'm gonna be the bad guy in this one, because that means people that don't have solar panels on their homes will be carrying the extra cost on their property, because you're still gonna have to raise, say, $8 million for the community. So if a third of the homes have solar panels, and that represents $500,000 that they're not assessed at, that $500,000 is gonna go on the 2/3 of the homes that don't have solar panels. You see where I'm going with that?
But if those homes didn't have solar panels, it would still be appropriated evenly amongst all the taxpayers already. That additional assessment only exists because of the solar panels.
Oh, I see what you're saying. They're getting taxed.
They're not-
getting assessed more money because of the solar.
Yes.
Correct, yeah, because.
Right.
All right.
Yep.
I'm not no longer the bad guy.
Okay, so it looks like another one
So which one?
So that's Article 36.
So that's 36, okay.
So this, it seems like we have to decide. Are we doing the 100% or is it valued per panel? I'm confused.
The assessed value is 500 per panel. I think you're gonna choose a percentage. If you wanna go 100%, we'll plug that in there.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, I think we go with the 100%, because that was the intention of how it was originally adopted by the town. And then New Hampshire doesn't have really great incentives for installing solar already, so to put another prohibition in place, I don't think is gonna encourage anyone to get it on their home.
The rest are already in here. That I've got the petition articles in red. One of them I already have, the other I don't, but I know it's coming.
Okay, and those will all be, petition articles, we don't have a say whether they go
Right.
forward, eventually we have a recommendation at that hearing.
And they still have time to submit more, right?
Right, till January 9th, I think.
Yeah.
Chris, was there any petitioned zoning articles this year?
For me, no.
No. Were there any for anybody else?
None that I've heard of.
Okay, because
Technically, they could be petitioned up until,
last week,
Oh, I did.
well,
I put it down
was for the notice of the hearing to go out for the January 8th.
That's okay, I tried
no,
to.
but they had to be received in the selectman's office by, I think, it was the middle
Yeah,
of December.
so there was none that I know of citizens
Susan, you haven't
petitions.
seen any, have you?
No citizens petition warrant articles.
For
No,
zoning.
those are the only two that I have already on here that.
Yeah,
that I-
For
For zoning, just look at zoning.
No, because those would have to come in quicker, right?
Yeah, middle of December.
Yeah.
Okay.
Have not.
No, I figured folks had
Exactly,
enough
they
to
come
read
to
this
select
here.
board first, so we would have seen them, that's why I'm asking.
Yeah, make sure.
All right, yeah, so we really don't have any input on any of the other ones there's no new ones we haven't discussed.
There's just the one, I think I left it off of my copy I added today. That was the one we just talked about the option agreement.
I thought
Is it
you
that
did
in
put
there?
it in here.
I think you've got it on your copy.
Yeah, I might have, okay.
Towards the end.
Yes, Article 37. To see if the town will vote to authorize select board to rent or lease municipal property for a term of up to 5 years. Yep. All right. Let's see, so we will dive, then we have the New Hampshire DRA municipal assessment, data certificate. So this is the set, the
It should be
equalization
in the
rate.
orange folder to sign. It's just one of those DRA documents. You're saying that you've reviewed their data. Basically, it's the stuff they went through to set the equalization rate.
Yeah.
We won't really want to get into the weeds of it, I don't think.
Yeah. Okay, so this is our DRA assessment rate. This is part of the cyclical review. And this, yeah, like she said, this just goes over all the percentages and ratios that came to come up with those numbers that we adopted. We got a lot of stuff we gotta go through in that anyway, so. All right, so 2024 board initiatives. We kind of discussed that we wanted to just put together a list of things we felt that the board should keep on their plate so they don't just keep getting forgotten or put on the back burner. So we wanted to talk about some suggestions that we had and see if everyone felt comfortable with just kind of it's not an official list of anything that has to be followed. I think it's just kind of a guiding thing for the board and whoever ends up being on the future board coming up in March, that they kind of have some initiatives and things that they're working on. So I'll bring, I know, first item on the list is put in place the structure for a town administrator. I am very in favor of the town moving towards a model where we have a town administrator. So I know there's been a lot of discussion. We want to continue in continue researching what that looks like and look at it as a potential proposal for the following year. So I personally agree that I think that's a good one for the list, and I think we all seem to be in agreement with that. We have create a building department to include a department head. So I think it's something that we can explore, but I think it'll kind of determine once we hire that vacancy, get it in there and see how things are working to see where that kind of grows. But I don't think it's nothing. That's nothing that's going to happen very quick. I think we need to solidify that position with code enforcement and building inspector to have some consistency down there to see what it needs.
Well, I think it's going to happen on its own timetable, based on who gets in there and how it all settles out. I mean, the whole structure or the potential structure could come together pretty nicely depending on who comes in to that role. But I think it's a good thing to have on our list as put a pin in, keep track of it, working on it.
We have create and publish organizational charts for the town. I think that's appropriate, so everyone kind of knows where things flow and where things go to. And I think if, we're going to be looking at putting in structure for a town administrator, I think it's important to know where everything is. We have revamped the website to include investigating other platforms. Do you want to talk to that one?
Yeah, I do. So I met with Tammy and Susan and Caitlin last week, and we started looking at just the website as it is now and getting rid of some data that is inaccurate, but also looking at other towns' websites. So Susan called Plastow and Exeter and spoke with them because we wanted to see how much that it cost them, because they're not on the free website, they're paying, right?
Yeah.
And it really was not cost prohibitive. One of them, it was $6,000 to build it, and then
I think 3,000 a year, 3,000 or 4,000 a year.
right, and if you go on their websites, just pick those, Exeter and Plastow. It's easy to use, it's user friendly, it looks very professional, it has all the data there. And so I think it's something that we can work with what we have, and we're going to move towards just organizing it a little bit better. But I think thinking about, there's money left over from the record force, that might be something that we could use to actually
To take it out of ARPA funding, there is quite a bit left from the scanning project that could go to something else, maybe something like this.
Yeah, no, I think it's, especially if we're talking, if we go to online applications for permitting and things like that.
Oh,
I
yeah,
definitely
these
think we're gonna
websites have everything. You can do everything online.
Yeah.
And not to say clearly you can still come in to town hall, but, it provides the opportunity to, everything's at your fingertips. And it's organized in such a way that it makes sense. So.
All right. So then we have continue with creating and updating policies for the town. I think that's got to continue to be an ongoing issue, because there've just been some that are severely outdated, and everything from just formatting to content, or lack of existence. And then we have increased community engagement and involvement.
You're a big proponent for that. You take every opportunity you can to remind people that they should get engaged. I feel like I feel like we really need to figure out a way to get more people involved, and it's a hard nut to crack, right? The collection center has been fantastic for having conversations with people, and that might be a good way to get some people involved. But I just think it's something we need to maybe strategize about and figure out how to, if we just increase by 1%.
Yeah. Well, and when you put that on there, I kind of started thinking, I was thinking maybe each committee or board could put together just some type of quick synopsis on, a lot of people just are afraid of the unknown. So they're like, well, I don't want to volunteer for anything because I have no idea what to expect, or I don't know if I'm qualified. Maybe if each committee or board could put something out like, hey, what to expect if you volunteered or ran for this committee or position. Like, you don't, like planning board, I didn't have any planning board experience and background, and I had no idea what I was jumping into, but maybe maybe if people said, okay, well, okay, if there's no special qualifications that I need, but I know I'm gonna have to learn some stuff, and
And maybe
if they put
time
together-
commitment,
yeah.
I think people are afraid of the time commitment, and if it's just 5 hours a month, you know, then it doesn't sound awful.
Yeah.
So, but I really think whoever's sitting at this table, come March, they really need to think about how we have to get more people engaged.
Yeah. Okay, so continuing down the list, we have explore a possibility of implementing a community power program for Kingston. I think that's a good idea. So I actually, I sat on a meeting that the county had on this level. So the county is actually entertaining, looking at one of these community power programs. The nice thing is if the county wouldn't be interested from the Board of Commissioners, they wouldn't be interested in doing the opt-out program, which is it wouldn't mandatory everyone into it, then they'd have to physically opt out. But I highly recommended that they look at doing the opt-in program, because if the county takes up that initiative, it immediately makes every household in the entire county eligible, so the individual towns don't have to pursue it. Right. So they did have a meeting, I believe a couple weeks ago, with Community Power in particular, but I believe the way the county RFP process goes, they would have to might have to go with the RFP as part of that to decide which one of these companies they would use. But
I think Epping just did it.
or they're committed. They might be.
They
Yeah,
just
they had a list. They had a list. I didn't bring the handout. I have it at home, but they had a list of communities throughout the state that have signed on, those that are committed or in process, and
even if communities haven't signed on, a lot of them are looking at it now because the legislation provides for, the opportunity to do that. And to basically provide, a better rate, if you will, for residents, much the way we as a town participate with the Planning Commission in their electricity aggregation program. It's something, the concept is similar to that, but it will be opened up to any ratepayer.
yeah, and even if so one of the questions that I asked about if you signed on with one of these committees, if you were a community that was involved in, say, a large solar project, does that make this company now have a seat at the table or a potential beneficiary of production stuff? So in particular, like I asked twofold, because we're possibly looking at one where we don't own it, but the county is building a 5 megawatt solar field that they own exclusively. So they didn't seem to have a clear answer for that. But even if you, as a town, sign up the community to be eligible for this type of thing, the town doesn't necessarily have to participate if it would restrict those things.
Right, and in the case of, if we were to have a solar production facility on the landfill, I mean, that's not a user of electricity.
Right.
It's a generator, it's an electricity generator. So I'm not sure how that...
Because they become your negotiator for rates, and I don't know if that ties them into supplying it back to the grid as well as getting it from the grid. And they didn't seem to have a clear answer on that.
Okay.
So next item, complete the ground marker and dedication for the Joe Thompson Memorial Tree at the Kingston Fire Department. So no, that's a great one that we definitely have to get finished up. We had talked when we had the public hearing on the street renaming item that came up, but we agreed that we wanted to start guidelines and a timeline for establishing the Kingston Volunteers Memorial, so that we could create a memorial to really honor volunteers that help out in the community. So I think that's a good one to have on the list. Complete the process that was started several years ago to establish a municipal water utility in Kingston. Do you want to speak specifically to that, Glenn?
Yeah, I didn't bring notes on it, but basically the voters approved the concept of a water utility in town, and that's the first step. There's at least one more big step that has to go to the voters, and it sets a lot of the parameters up for the structure and everything to get us into a position where if and when we're ready to supply municipal water, we'd be ready to do that. But also gives us some control over the extraction of water in our community that would be leaving our community. So if a commercial water company put wells into Kingston, tapped the aquifer, and piped it out of town.
The one on the Hampshire line?
Well, as an example, but there could be much larger ones, very, much, and as I said, the town took the first step to start establishing the structure. We need to follow through and do the remainder of the steps so that we've got things in place and that we would be able to have more control over the water resource in town.
So with this, so this is like talking about the utility of the water as an asset in general, not necessarily providing town water?
Correct.
Okay.
Town asset.
Correct.
Okay.
To manage the asset.
And I'm comfortable with that. I'm not a big fan of municipal water supplies in small towns.
Right. No, the purpose of it, in my mind anyway, is to manage the asset, but it also sets up the structure so that if at some point in the future, let's say everything goes to heck in, around the pond, and we find ourselves having to supply water to some of those denser developments in environmentally sensitive areas, we'd at least have the mechanism there to start building on to do a water system.
Yeah.
And also precludes others from tapping into our aquifer. That's really a key ingredient here, because that's happening now because we didn't have this already in place.
Correct, and I think that's important, because the last thing you want is somebody to grab 100 acres and put a water bottling plant, and they can draw as much as they want from the aquifer and drain it out. I think those protections are important.
And it doesn't necessarily stop them from doing that, but it would give you a seat at the table in discussing and negotiating what's in it for Kingston, and what revenue would we be getting from it.
Correct.
And you and I both thought of this today during the storm, is about a backup generator, potentially having a backup generator at the town hall.
And somewhere, some folks can remind me, but I can remember seeing this on the capital improvement plan at one point in time, and I don't know if it's dropped off the edge or.
I don't know where it disappeared, but it seemed to have disappeared.
It does, and
If I had to take a guess, it probably disappeared when the former police chief was acquiring numerous items through the government surplus, and he probably had a line on some diesel-powered military generators, but they're useful, but they're not convenient.
We definitely need a generator for the town hall. We cannot function it. We need to upgrade the town hall, which is what we've been talking about for the last 4 years, for climate control, generator, even the internet. But for example, when Tammy lost some power today, she had internet, but she didn't have the connection to the state.
Yeah, she was on the backup, so she couldn't do any of the motor vehicle related items.
Exactly. So those are the types of things. We had talked about that when the ARPA funds first became available, that this building would get a priority because it needs an upgrade on many levels.
So, in that same vein, I mean, DPW is working on getting some costs for upgrading the HVAC, rebuilding the stairs out front. I don't know if those two items are going to end up using up the rest of the ARPA funds, but if it doesn't, I'd like to consider adding a backup generator to that list.
Yeah.
I mean, we've gone without it for way too long in this building. And when I got the note from Tammy this morning about, not being able to do work, I'm thinking, well, hello?
All right.
Good start.
All right. We will open it up to public comment number 2. Chief? Nothing. Rick?
Briefly, my understanding would be that assuming the article passed, which I'm sure it will, relative to the option agreement, that the select board would then at that point, shortly after that, extend the option for the full period of time, not wait the year until it does.
Correct. It would be, immediately on passage, we discussed that would be the action we want to take.
And the other thing, the community power plan it's really a no-brainer. I mean,
Yeah.
you eliminate the rate of return on investment for shareholders, so you obviously have millions of dollars that now become available for ratepayers to save money. So it's kind of an, Exeter's got it, and it's just, I've talked to some people over there, and it's been great, so.
Oh, yeah, I mean, they broke down the estimations on all the individual towns in the area and the potential cost savings, and it's a lot. I mean, it really does seem like a no-brainer, and the community power one in particular, they're a nonprofit, and we asked a lot of pointed questions about their infrastructure of their business and salaries and all those other things, so as opposed to some of these other companies that are absolutely for-profit. So they definitely seem like they had a really good presentation on what they provide.
Right, and if you can eliminate the shareholders, it just saves a lot of money.
And that's why I was really, advocating, I'd like the county I hope the county continues to pursue the opt-in agreement to essentially make it right out the gate available to every home throughout the entire county.
Right, so thanks.
All right, Phil?
So just an update on the heating system. We have not gone out for quotes yet because we have quite the tangled rat's nest of HVAC. The LED upgrades also shined a pretty heavy spotlight on our electrical system here. We had to pay it was only about $1,200, but the wires between lights had 1/8 of an inch of slack between them. Massively overloaded circuits, so the LEDs were blinking in a lot of cases. So rather than just try and get quotes for the sake of getting quotes, and I don't think we're going to rip out the heating system in the next 3 months. So trying to get not a firm plan, but at least a preliminary plan of what we're looking for, so we can at least start, and everybody's bidding the same thing. I have had 2 separate contractors out here to look at things and put some ideas together, and that's where we're at. We've had some issues with the furnace off of the break room. Our contractor for oil fully admitted that they dropped the ball on it, but they have not delivered to us since March. So yes, well, this year, but they now are saying that our tank is not within code, and we're trying to work through that. It does, just to reiterate your point, Ellie, it all needs to be done in here, and I think before we start looking at a generator, we're going to have to tackle the HVAC thing as I think the appropriate thing to do first, but next on that list will be the electrical system.
I think the appropriate thing is to have some contractors look at it as a whole, not just individual pieces, because we don't want to end up with stuff that was Band-Aid fixed that only lasts 2 years, and we're back at,
In some cases.
There's a lot of things that we're just like, well, that'll hold us for a while.
Well, and if you're going to be investigating things like upgrading electric, I mean, it would make a lot of sense to make sure that at least it's wired and ready for generator.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Even if we don't have the generator at the same time, it should be ready to go once we get it.
And I would also suggest that we at least have the capability for rooftop solar to be tied into that as well.
Yep.
Just an update on that while you were discussing it.
No, we appreciate it. All right, Stacy, Paula? Okay. All right, so we will close public comment number 2, and I'm just going to, instead of going off the list, I'm just going to go right through the folders to see what we have, to make sure we don't miss anything, because I think they're...
You want to approve some minutes? We
Yeah.
don't have to do non-public, right? We have draft minutes for December 11th.
Yep.
Public and non-public, I move that we adopt those.
Second.
Any further discussion on the minutes? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. All right, so we do have this is a general assistance item. That signed. We have another general assistance item. We signed that one. We have some other general payroll checklists that you can review. We have the KRT appraisal. We decided we were holding on this till they addressed some of those. We're just continuing to hold on this? Because we were gonna, last meeting we said we're gonna hold it because they had some errors that they had to fix. In particular, they're researching some of the commercial properties. Okay. Yeah, the article that Glenn got on some of the commercial items, so we were concerned about that.
The reason why some of the commercial tax bills were going down, where the residential ones were going up, right?
And I guess we only have, what, 10, 11 days to demand any updates or changes on anything before the contract expires. But is there anything major outstanding? I mean, they've continued to give us advice on any abatements that have been coming forward?
Yeah, they've been good. I've had several things I had to approach our representative with, and he's really quick.
Okay, all right, so I think we can move forward and we don't have to hold this any longer. There's no issues. Okay. All right, so I think you've
Just as an aside, we got something in the mail that said we were randomly selected to be, our house to be assessed by the state.
Oh, the DR, yeah, the
Yeah.
DRA.
Yeah.
We got one on one of our commercial properties.
Did you? Okay, yeah. And they're just gonna do the outside, they're gonna take measurements, and they'll be in a government vehicle and not to be alarmed, and if you oppose to call by a certain number.
What would be the point?
An audit, probably.
It's DRA essentially sending in their own assessors
Yeah.
to see if their assessment is in line with the appraisal company that the town has contracted. So it's really the DRA's kind of audit of assessors.
They do that. They follow up with a certain number of properties.
Okay, so I know we had another discussion on this, but this is just the invoice for Sanborn Head, which we've come to an amount that we're agreeing to pay. So there's no reduced amount that we would agree to pay. We have I signed on the radar units for the chiefs. This is a solar system exemption for 157 Main Street. Okay. Yep, so that's in there under the current standard at which it exists. I imagine you will probably abstain from signing that.
Yes.
So we have the consultant selection justification form for the ARPA, American Rescue Plan Act. This is for the fire station PFAS mitigation POET system, and this is Verdantis that has been.
Oh, that's for we have to sign that, but that's involved in the grant.
Yeah, for all the POET systems. Okay, so I've signed that because I know we had already agreed to go with that, so I made sure. We have the appointment to public office. This is for the deputy town treasurer position, Donna Clark, who spoke to us at the last meeting. We have the appointment paperwork here to sign. We have a veterans tax credit for 42 Little River Road. Everything is here, appropriate paperwork is here, so we can sign off on that. We have, this was the DRA that we talked about earlier, the municipal assessment data certificate, so I've signed that. Everyone else can sign it. Now we have this was just an FYI in here for Drummond and Woodsum, the town's legal counsel. This is just their updated attorney, general municipal attorney rate effective January 1st, 2024 is $245 per hour. And then it also talks about the labor and employment attorney rates. There's one that's a commingled rate because it involves two employees, and then two additional ones. Those are listed there. Is this a change? Was this a change in the hourly rate?
I neglected to look what our old rate was. Most of those don't really affect us. It's what they charge.
Yeah. I just would like us, if you could just find out what it previously was.
They served us well.
No, they've been very responsive, and we're not without complicated issues. Okay, so we have before us an abatement application. So this has been reviewed by KRT Appraisal. So I have reviewed the abatement application request of Paul Riccio. Okay, yeah, for the property of 53 Newton Junction Road. So he's the gentleman that came in and spoke with us. The property was receiving an elderly exemption in 2022 that the previous owner had qualified for. The property was sold on 7/20 and the elderly exemption was removed prior to the second issued bill. The issue is that the exemption shall remain on a property for the entire tax year, regardless of whether the new owner qualifies. I recommend an abatement be granted for the property. If granted, the change in tax amount for the 2022 tax year would result in abatement for the amount of $2,634.55. The application is attached, so it is being recommended that we grant the abatement application, and we already had some thorough discussions on that. Okay, so we can sign off on this. So this letter was also attached to that. I think this was all attached to it and it just fell out. Okay, and then we just have one more item. We have a request from employee PC, vacation time carryover, requesting permission to carry over the remaining 44 hours of unused vacation time or any remaining balance as of December 31st, 2023 into the 2024 year. I've been very vocal about this, that I think they should be able to. I mean, I'm hoping we can, at some point, maybe, I know it's an unfunded liability at some point, or we create some type of mechanism, but we have to, I'd like to create some number that they could carry over no matter what. And 2018. We'll pass this to Lori, and then we can pass it back that way. Any cookies? All right, any?
'Tis the season.
So just for general knowledge of anyone listening, next meeting we have Thursday, December 28th at noon. There is a select board meeting, which is a meeting to discuss the encumbering of any funds. So that's on December 28th at noon time. Then our next regularly scheduled select board meeting will be Monday, January 8th at 6:30 p.m. And there are some budget hearings currently of January 6th. So that will be the discussed budget. And then January 13th, that'll be all the discussion on the warrant articles. Deadline for petition warrant articles, not zoning petition warrant articles, but any other related warrant articles, is January 9th. And the filing period for candidates for any open positions in the town is going to be January 24th through February 2nd. Any other business as needed? Phil?
Just a question on the encumbrances. Will POs be signed that day or encumbered?
We have the ability to sign them. What have we previously?
Yeah, if we have any, we'll do them that day, if there are any. I mean,
Yeah.
There probably shouldn't be that much because we don't have a lot of cash left, but
But you never know.
just saying.
We're just squaring away year-end reconciliation on the budget, so I can certainly hand walk them around prior to Friday.
No, I mean,
Would be my goal, but
there's going to be a quorum here anyway, so
Okay.
I mean, it's just as easy to.
we got waylaid this morning with some things.
Yeah.
So we didn't get to have those ready for this evening, and
Okay.
we weren't quite fully figured, so,
Okay.
thank you.
All right. Last chance, last call.